Yeah, good. Well, I think it's about time here. So I started the slideshow. I
Okay.
think it's about time. Actually, Jessie, what time do you see?
I have 3:30 on my computer.
Okay, goodness gracious, we're starting. All right, let's see if I can start to admit. Well, welcome here, everybody. Joe Valevsky again with Teach Outdoors Minnesota, and this is our weekly Wednesday workshop, the 3 Ws. The slides that you're seeing right now were provided by Jessie Barnett and her team of presenters, which we're all going to meet in a bit here. And so there's a lot of information on each of these. And so I have them going a little bit slower than I normally do because I don't want you to miss any of the really key parts right here, but I suspect that they're going to touch on all of this for us. And so I'm excited to learn about what they have to share with us. Just like usual, if you're a returner to this, you know that I always record all of these and that Anna will put them up on the website. She always does. They're all there. And what I'd love is if you would go to the chat and put in where you're from. It's always fun to see that. And I know that we come together every single week and share things. Also in the chat, especially at the very end, I'm going to remind you again, feel free to put in topics that you think that we should be covering, that we should make available here, or topics not only that we should make available, but maybe you could present or co-present, just like we've got our 3 co-presenters here. But I want to make sure that everybody remembers that this is a community of people that come together and we just want to share. We just want to share, and help people to teach outdoors. That's our goal. Especially if you have resources or ideas, share them at the end, definitely. But what I want to do here, because I think we might have the key folks to start right now, is I think I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to, hey, there's all the smiley faces. I'm going to pass it over to Jessie, who's going to get us started. So Jessie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having us. We are so excited to share this resource set we've been working with for the past year. I'm Jessie. I work at the University of Minnesota, Rochester. I'm here with Kristin Osiecki, who also works at UMR, and Megan Schimek, who's the biology teacher at Pine Island High School in Pine Island. And we are going to, I'll share my screen and we can go ahead and get started. We'll make sure to set the last 15 minutes aside for questions and we can be of help if we can. So we'll kind of move through the first part as kind of a series of things that we're going to do, and we'll do questions and some more interaction towards the end of our session today. So thank you so much for being here. We can't wait to spend time with you. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to work on an aspect of immersive virtual learning, creating an interactive virtual classroom environment online. So it's like an outdoor classroom hub for your resources, for your students, or whoever you're working with, to have an outdoor home that's not truly outdoors, but gives us a sense of outdoor space, even though we're engaging online. Because I know that a lot of us have been doing a lot of engaging online, whether we like it or not. So our day will look like this. We'll introduce ourselves and tell you how we started using this type of resource. Then we'll share some examples that we've been using. And then we'll get started. We will do a step-by-step workshop on how to set up this outdoor classroom environment. And then at the end, we'll do some idea sharing and be of support or assistance if there's anything you need. So thank you for tuning in, either on your computer, on your phone, or whatever works for you. So today, what you'll need is the ability to chat on Zoom if you'd like to chat with us or answer a few questions. A phone or a tablet if you'd like to create your own personal emoji or a Bitmoji that represents you. This is optional. Access to Google Slides if you'd like to follow along. If not, we will do a demonstration that you can just watch. And then internet access, because you'll need all that. So first of all, who are we and how did this virtual classroom hub come about? So like I said, I'm Jessie Barnett. I teach public health at UMR, and I work with some really great people. And we decided we had to figure out how to get our students outside. If you've ever been to Rochester, Minnesota, you've seen downtown probably by Mayo Clinic, and it kind of looks like a series of hamster tubes. Our students, if they live on campus, they can never go outside. They can get everywhere they need to go without ever leaving a hamster tube, a skyway, a subway, or a building. And we thought there's so much more out there to explore. There's so many ways to connect the environment and human health, and we have got to make this happen. So we started a program called Eco Literacy School, where we partner with high school students and Megan Schimek. Megan?
Yeah, I'm Megan Schimek. I am a high school biology, and I also teach the biomedical sciences courses at Pine Island, which is just north of Rochester. I've been teaching for 14 years, and I like to pride myself in being able to take my students outside regularly because we're kind of in a rural community. We've got the Zumbro River that passes right by us, and we take advantage of as many opportunities as we can to get students outside. And so I absolutely jumped on board when the opportunity arose to have this connection.
Hi, I'm Kristin Osiecki. I'm an assistant professor in public health at UMR. I work with Jessie Barnett. We are team teachers and we approach public health in a very engaging way. My background is initially in environmental health and looking at environmental justice issues, but we're also really motivated on creating innovative and engaged curriculum for our students so they could actually participate in the process instead of just watching us talk about it.
So I know that a lot of you know each other because you've been to a lot of these sessions already, but we'd like to get to know you a little bit more. So thank you for introducing yourself in the chat and where you're from. And if you wouldn't mind sharing in the chat the kind of work that you do, that you have done, or you would like to do. And we can kind of get to know you a little bit better as we introduce ourselves further, and we can see who we have here today and what we're all up to. So go ahead and work on that as Dr. Osiecki tells you a little bit more about the program that brought our university together with Pine Island High School.
So Eco Literacy School is an engaged program between our undergraduate students in health science, and they mentor health science students at Pine Island High School. So I have to preface this, Jessie and Megan are really outdoorsy folk, and I'm originally from Chicago, so my idea of the outdoors is getting on the L train. So this has been a great immersive experience for me as well as our students, but it's an incredible curriculum where our students do field experiences together. Our high school students get to talk to our undergraduate students, learn more about what college is about. And even during COVID, we've seen some amazing connections with our students as they communicate and get to know each other. So that's basically eco literacy. And when it isn't COVID, I have to sleep in a tent, and we've been out there when it snows, and yeah, so but it's a fantastic program and it's so much fun to implement.
Dr. Osiecki is really an asset because we have so many students who've never spent time outdoors. We even had a student a few years ago who had never walked on uneven ground. And so we have the privilege of going outside in our lives. And we always acknowledge that our students come from a wide variety of backgrounds, and experiences like this are often new and different and a little bit scary. And so Dr. Osiecki is always able to relate to students when it's their first time having this privilege of going outside and being in nature. And we always appreciate that aspect. So our task today is to figure out how to bring an outdoor classroom hub into a virtual learning space. We did this a little bit out of necessity during COVID times because we couldn't see our students as much as we wanted to. We wanted to make a space where they could feel like they're as outdoors as we could get them, even though they couldn't always be outside with us. And so Megan's going to share a few practical ideas for bringing nature-based learning into a shared online space and some examples of student work, and then we'll get into what our learning hub actually looked like.
Yeah, so a couple practical ideas that we had to take into consideration as we were starting our process of creating this virtual online classroom that you might want to take into consideration as well is being able to assess the availability of technology for your students. Are you in a school district where every student has access to a computer or technology, or is it available to every student when they're at school? Just knowing that can kind of help guide your direction. And then being that I teach at the high school level and our students are all high school and college, they use technology constantly. So we capitalized on that. They're going to use it anyways. So we made a point to incorporate this technology that they're going to use into a lot of the assignments that we had. And so some of the specific examples, we used photography integrated assignments, nature apps. Seek by iNaturalist was huge. We use that all the time. But then also free editing and compilation software like Adobe Spark. We then, sharing is caring. We're having these students create these masterpieces, and we don't want them to just be for us. We want them to be able to share with one another. And so we were able to do that by having a platform such as Slack is one that we've used. Slack is really great in that it allows for students to communicate in our program within their mentorship pods and with one another. Students are able to post their work, and then other students are able to comment on it, provide feedback. It was especially helpful as this year everything was done virtually, and we started the year off where students didn't know one another. And so it was great for just getting discussions going. And it was fun to see this type of interaction occur naturally, and it flowed seamlessly in that online setting. And so, yeah. Many of our activities, like we mentioned on the previous slide, use nature-based photography as a means for making connections to the content from our course. Here we have a couple examples of an assignment where students used photos that they had taken during our field experiences and then connected those photos to passages from a text. This year, students read Gathering Moss, which is a book. If you haven't read it, it's definitely worth reading. But they connected the pictures that they had taken to passages from that text, and then also to a larger theme. And those themes included health, mindfulness, anatomy, and interdependence. And so it was just a way, usually at the high school level, we have students read, and about 5% of them actually read. The other 95% say they read. And so just being able to have students, it gave them a reason to actually take advantage of all the opportunities. Another example, the one listed on the screen now, is an example of an Adobe Spark video that students made. For this particular assignment, students were given a sample of buckthorn, and as they learned about invasive species, they used a resource from the University of Minnesota Extension Office to identify the species. And then they put their work together in a 30-minute video clip that they were then able to share with their mentorship pods on that Slack platform. So Jessie, if you'll play that one. Yeah, so those are just a few examples. We'll talk more about those and then how we can incorporate them into our virtual learning classroom.
So now we're going to share some ideas for creating a virtual learning hub. And the first thing we'd like to do is share when we were brainstorming what we wanted our virtual outdoor classroom to feel like. We came up with some words that we just really wanted to focus on. We didn't want it to be intimidating. We wanted it to feel warm and inviting and interesting. We wanted it to offer more. So if a student was interested in something, they could like scrounge around in our classroom and find a resource about it. And just be a place to be that inspires their curiosity. And lastly, we want it to be fun and adaptable. So as our course changed, and as our interactions changed, and even as the seasons changed, we could make it look like winter as things got colder. And so students would kind of see the passage of time in their learning and in their community. So before we start looking at what ours looked like, before we kind of pollute the minds of our viewers, we want to make sure you can bring your own ideas about what you would want your hub to feel like, this virtual classroom. So we'd like for you to chat as you're comfortable, a word or two, or maybe a sentence about what feelings you'd want your virtual meeting space and your virtual hub to evoke in the students who visited. So we'll take a minute of a quiet time to think about that and go ahead and send some of those in your chat. When a student enters your virtual classroom, how do you want them to feel about it? Megan, if you can see those, could you read off one or two?
Yeah, so we have accepting of all ideas, low stress, a sense of wonder, curious and safe, engaging and exciting, open and reflecting diversity. That's a really good one.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to hold on to those, and Kristin's going to kind of take some of those and put them into a visual that we're going to use in a few minutes. And this is what we want to start with. We want to start with how you want it to feel, and then we'll build towards those feelings so that whoever is in it is going to feel like they're in the space that you want them to be in. A few things to consider as your mind is starting to work around what you want your classroom to feel like, or outdoor, indoor space to feel like. Start cataloging in your head what you need to put in there, like the essentials. If it's for a class, what do students really need every day in that space? Links to resources, like if you're going to use apps or tools, what you might want to put in there on that side. You can put you in there, so your own little emoji self called a Bitmoji. And then we want to make sure that you can tailor your learning space to you, to your community, to your theme or your region in Minnesota or around the world, and create that feeling that you are hoping for as we move forward. So those are the main things we're going to look at. I'm going to chat out a link to our virtual classroom, and we'll give everyone a few minutes to just kind of click around the classroom. And as you click around it, see what you like about it and maybe what you would change, because everyone's classroom is going to be different. So explore it, click on all the little icons, click on us. You'll see us as little Bitmojis, and take a minute to just poke around there and see what you can see. A lot of the icons are clickable. So if you move over them with your mouse, they'll have a hyperlink that will take you somewhere. And when you go there, you might need to put it in presentation mode. I'll show you what that looks like if we need it. So when you click the link, you'll probably get to a page that looks like this. And then if you go to present, you'll see the classroom in present mode. And you can start clicking around a little bit. So you can click on Kristin. You can click on the book Gathering Moss that we read and see Robin Wall Kimmerer's website. You can see our field experiences, and then a few fun little hidden items that you can click on that'll take you somewhere else. So as you explore, think about what you want yours to look like. It doesn't have to be a cartoon. It can be real nature imagery, and whatever works for you. So now that you've had a chance to see an example and you're kind of thinking about how you want yours to be, we're going to start the brainstorming and the building component of this. So when we're looking at how to create this virtual outdoor workspace or hub, there's three main parts. First is the background. Second is layers of other images to make it look like a 3D space that your group can walk around in and click around in. And then the third is where they go. So what takes them places? What hyperlinks do you have put in that'll take them to a resource, or take them to a fun page, or take them to an assignment, even depending on what you're using this for? But the most important part is that you capture the spirit of your region, seasonality if you want to, and then your unique community. So you know the people best that are going to use this, and you want to build it to bring those words in. So as we look at what this looks like for you, we're about to walk through a creation phase of this. So you can follow along if you want to and create, or you can just watch and kind of file this away. I know that some of you have probably used this type of classroom before. And when we get to our Q&A, if you have any tips of things you found are really, really helpful, that is wonderful. Okay, so we're going to do a step-by-step demonstration about creating your own interactive virtual outdoor classroom hub. And after we do our demonstration, Megan will do a brief how-to of how to create your own Bitmoji if you don't have one yet. And if you do already have one, you can keep working on your classroom, and then we'll all come together after we go through this part. So if you'd like to follow along, all you need to do is start up a new Google Doc, like a nice fresh Google Doc that's looking blank because we're about to make it come alive. You can choose if you'd like it in the long version, or if you want to change it to more of a square version. I usually change it to more of a square version because it looks better on my learning platform in the end, but that's up to you. If you want to follow along on that step, you just change it to under page setup to standard, and then you click apply. And then we're going to put in our background. So this is where you decide if you want a cartoon, if you want a lake, a river, a sunset, whatever works for you. And the best and easiest thing to do is to search the web using the insert picture. And we'll search for lake background. Ooh, that's very pretty. Maybe we'll do, maybe we'll do this one. We'll do a little lakeside picture here. You can make it fit onto your screen and stretch it out. So once you have your background you'd like, all you do is populate it with other things. Maybe you'd like to put in maybe a campfire. That sounds pretty good to me. Ooh,
Another thing too that we might add is when you're looking for things to add, it's helpful if you also add the term transparent so that you don't get any background that comes with the image.
That's so true. And you're building your little space. I always like to put, depending on what I'm using it for, I like to put some sort of message board so that I can change it and add things that students or whoever I'm using this will see. So we can put let's do a wooden sign and see what we get. Ooh, that one looks really good. Use that one. You can add our sign. You can say welcome, whatever you'd like to add. And then let's put in one more thing. Maybe we'll put in a stump by our fire. That's a good one. That's a cartoon though. So you have to hunt around if you want cartoon, all cartoon, if you want something that's more of an actual picture. I'll just put that one in there for now. So depending on how many people you're working with and what you want to create, you can put like a gathering space around your campfire, whatever you'd like to do. And then you want to make all these go somewhere. So for example, let's say I wanted to look at the emerald ash borer. I would find a website that's a resource that I would trust. And I'll take a copy of that URL. And then I might go back to my stump. Click on my stump, and I'll click on my little hyperlink insert link thing here and paste in my emerald ash borer. And then if a student clicks on this and they're like, oh, that's a stump, I wonder where that came from. And then they click on it, it'll take them to this resource page that I want them to look at. So it's really, creativity is a good friend for this. And then we can end up with a full page that's really interactive, that has all kinds of fun stuff going on, little hidden things for students to find. And if you want to add you, and you've gone through the process of getting Bitmoji all set up that Megan will talk about in a second, you can add yourself automatically. And I can say maybe camping. Oh, that's nice. Maybe I'll put myself in a boat out on this lake. And you can arrange yourself and kind of mess with the perspective to make it look like it's real and it's 3D and it's a place where people want to be. And if you have a bio or a link to you or a way for students or people to contact you directly, you can hyperlink that in there and people can say, I want to talk to Jessie right now, and click on me and know where to find me.
For those of you who had mentioned you're doing a lot of virtual field trips, this is also a place where you could link those in.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. That's a great example, Megan. We have our field experience itinerary linked with our backpack. So students, when they click on that, they could see when we were operating our course, where we were going to go and what we were going to do from their backpack of all their supplies. And it was lots of fun. So lots of flexibility, lots of really fun things to do. And
it's
lots
also
of-
fun to just hide things and never reference them. Just see if your students find them on their own. So like, for
Yeah.
example, in ours, our high school mascot is the panther. So if they click on the panther, that comes to something. University of Minnesota is the raptor. So if you click on the raptor, it'll come to something. You just like,
Yeah.
we call them little Easter eggs. And for the kids who want to keep going down all the rabbit holes, it's just super fun.
It is. And you can change with the seasons, add fall leaves, add whatever you'd like. So students get that sense of time. There's a few things to keep in mind as you're creating your own outdoor learning space that's virtual. The first is the age level of your users, of course, and then kind of finding a cohesiveness in your visuals. So it brings a sense of place into an online learning space, and then accessibility and universal design practices. And we'll show an example of what that looks like with another virtual space that we created. This is an example of a levity library. Kristin and I were doing a workshop a few weeks ago that was pretty intense. It was about some of the current events that are happening with police brutality and lack of equity and advocacy, et cetera, et cetera. So we created a levity library because it was a long workshop and a long experience. We needed a place where people could go and kind of take a little break for a few minutes if they needed to. So this library is interactive, and I'm showing it because our next page gives us an example of accessibility in this type of design. So our participants could click on all these things and they would go to like a panda cam at the zoo, some stretching and meditation exercises, and all kinds of stuff. But if someone's using an assistive reading device, this is a really hard scene to navigate. It's almost impossible. And so what we were able to do is create a resources with descriptive text slide. So if someone's using an e-reader or an assistive reading device, it spells out where everything is, so they can create a mental picture if that's what they'd like to do. And then their e-reader will engage with all of this text and kind of arrange it. In the top shelf of the bookcase, you can access this link. The stretching and meditation, which is our middle shelf, you can access these links. So it's more accessible for all users than just a straight up visual might be. So this is a great idea to do if you're considering doing an outdoor classroom on a virtual platform, so that everybody can engage and be in open communication with you about things that may not be working for them and have another option. Okay, so Megan's going to share a resource guide, and I'll also chat it out as she shares what's in it, and then she'll talk us through some ideas on creating your U with Bitmoji.
Yeah, so Jessie, you're going to share out that link?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, we put together this resource sheet knowing that our time here is limited, and for those of you who want to try this, we wanted you to have resources that you can go back and look at while you're navigating this on your own. So on that resource sheet there, we have links to Bitmoji. So if you're wanting to add a Bitmoji of yourself, there's a link to the Bitmoji page. You will need an app on your phone to create your Bitmoji. And then you'll also make an account on your computer and add a Chrome extension, which is linked to your Bitmoji account. So then you can do what Jessie was doing, where you can add in one of about 1 million different Bitmojis that are auto-generated for yourself. And then we've also linked the original Creating a Bitmoji Classroom that we followed along as we were first making our own Bitmoji Classroom. And then for those of you who are classroom teachers and are working with learning management systems, it might be a good idea to link that. So for example, our school uses Schoology. So on my Schoology page, when students come, on the main page, it's got an embedded Bitmoji Classroom where they don't have to go anywhere else, because I know if they have to click too many times, chances are they're going to stop clicking and quit trying. So if you're using Canvas, we've included a link to embedding your platform there. There's also one for Google Classroom, Schoology, and Seesaw. We realize that there's a lot of other learning management systems too. And so the key here is you can Google embedding Bitmoji Classroom on the name of your learning management system. And we've also included our contact information. So as you're doing this, if you come to any obstacles or just have any questions, we would love to work with you and answer any questions that you guys have. So you want to save this and feel free to reference it as you need to and contact us as needed as well.
So we are at the end of our how-to space. And so we'd love to open it up for any questions you have. There were some great ones in the chat, or anything you'd like to share about your experience with online learning and how to bring the outdoors, indoors, outdoors. And if you're working on your classroom and you need a tip or two, we are here for that. So yeah, any thoughts or questions that you have?
So I'll open it, I suppose. This is Joe again. I'll open it with a question that I asked yesterday of some people, that what I have found is that if I use a 360 camera, I can take an image of some place that's a rich environment, and then I can take that and put that 360 image on an app, I suppose, called ThingLink. And then within ThingLink, I can embed two-dimensional images all over the place so that people can click on that. And so then what happens is that if I'm outdoors on Raven Lake, which is frozen, and I have that 360 ThingLink image that is Raven Lake 360, then what can happen is my students can be directed to explore that 360 in all directions, and they can click on things and they can say, hey, I see this picture of a moose that you saw. What can you tell me about that? So it engages them, and I'm in this digital diorama, right? So I'm really on the lake, but in a sense, I'm in that. And so in other words, the technology has influenced my technique. I'm curious about other examples. What other examples might exist about how the technology maybe has influenced your technique, or how you've modified your technique a little bit to meet some of the technology? I wonder about that a little bit.
Megan, I have a thought about that as an example. Would you like to share about the clip-on microscopes and what that brought to the experience?
Oh, yeah. So being that I teach biology and I take my students outside a lot, this last summer, I was able to find these little clip-on microscopes for $7 off Amazon. You can get them a lot of different places, but they just clip on your phone, and then you can use them to get really close-up images. I don't know, we were looking at moss. Our students love looking at moss. We were raising some monarch butterflies, so we're able to look at the eggs. And it's amazing the amount of detail that those little microscopes can use. And it's like, obviously you would never take a normal microscope outside, but for a cheap option, it's a really great resource that we were able to use. And then our students were able to use those images that they took within a lot of their assignments that they used.
That reminds me of the little adapters you can get for like binoculars that you can hook your phone up. And so then you can have the binoculars and then you can have your phone screen. And so more students can see through. So if you have a spotting scope or something like that, I found that's a really neat way to allow students to all get a quick look at something before it takes off.
Yeah.
I had a question for people on the panel. Thank you. Hi, Jessie. It's Sheila. And I was wondering about the Slack gallery, if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Sheila. Sheila and I are in the IONE Educators program at the university. So we were looking for a way to have our high school students and our college students connect in an environment that we could keep an eye on. and also learn a new piece of software that is used in the medical field that they want to go into. So a lot of our health science students are like, I want to go into health and medicine of some kind. And we found out through some Mayo Clinic partners that Mayo uses Slack a lot. And it was a great introduction into not only the software, but a way where they could communicate freely, but also publicly, which is important because we have college students and minors working together. And it's free, which is exceptional. And the gallery was so powerful. It was a shared space where they would create their art-based assignments and their nature-based assignments. And then part of their assignment, they got a point for it, was to share it in the gallery. So like the art gallery, and students could peruse this gallery of student work and comment on each other's work and get inspiration and find a space that was shared. So like Megan said, their work wasn't just for us, and it lived on in the student world, which was pretty powerful. And we did also find that their quality of work improved when they knew that it was going to go into the gallery. And that was also really exciting. Felt like they had ownership of it, and they knew that it was going to be a thing, which was pretty cool. Yeah, any perspectives from Megan, from the high school side, Megan, on that one?
Yeah, no, and I would just piggyback off. So our high school has a learning management system. UMR had a learning management system, but my students were not able to get on Jessie's, and Jessie's students weren't able to get on mine. And so that's really why we had to find this alternative, and it worked out really great. It's easy to use, easy to navigate. Students really like it, and yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Sheila, what do you use with your younger students? Do you use Seesaw or anything like that?
No, we really don't use a lot of virtual tools with them. I mean, we use, like phone apps like, Merlin and Seek, iSeek, and I'm really in love with the new BirdNet. I love that one because it's basically Shazam for bird sounds. So
Ooh.
I love it because you just record and then you show it has a lot of really wonderful things for young children, but you can see when sound is occurring, right? Because it's capturing waves. And so we talk about that too. Like children have asked questions like, and then you pick a section and then you upload it and it shows you a picture of your bird. So that's really been fun. So more apps like in the moment, but we did a little bit of virtual teaching between March and May of last year. And with preschoolers, it really should be in person.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just developmentally, it's really hard for them to engage in the same way, especially around these topics. But your slideshow, interactive slideshow, reminded me of software that there used to be a long time ago. I don't know if you remember, like Reader Rabbit. When it looks just like, and they can click in and they have this kind of immersive experience. My own children, who are now all in their 20s, still sing some of the songs from the Reader Rabbit camping, because that's the only one we had, was the camping one. I was like, if you're going to be on the computer, it's going to fit our values. So they had the Reader Rabbit camping one, and yeah, so I think that that's wonderful. And I was actually thinking about it when I was doing my practice screen as a way to engage. I teach a college course on nature-based learning, and thinking about how to engage them. I think that this is a really great tool for the university too.
Jessie, I was just thinking about this. Maybe you want to tell more about our mentoring pods and how Slack, how we build a community versus like one-to-one mentoring, and discuss how that came about.
Yeah, so one of our challenges with working with students of different ages, even though they're similar enough, they're just at different stages in life. And I think no matter what age groups you work with, you always have a little bit of that. And when we were working with near peer mentorship, this idea of students being mentored by other students who are just 1 to 4 years older than they are, depending on where they are, there was a huge intimidation factor that we didn't quite anticipate. I think we thought they'd be close enough in age that wouldn't be an issue, and that was not the case. So we really were able to reflect on that a lot. Our first year, we set up our students on a one-to-one mentorship situation where it was one college student to one high school student. And conversation, it was hard to get conversation to flow. It felt like there's a lot of pressure when they would interact. And so we, based on their feedback and what we had learned, we created a mentorship pod idea where we'd have 2 to 3 college students and 2 to 3 high school students kind of connected in this dynamic pod where they would move through their experience together as a mentorship pod. And it gave our students more places to connect. It gave our high school students more things to like bounce off of. And our college students didn't feel like they had to have all the answers to everything, because that's never possible. And even when we're creating communities online, it was so much easier for students to talk and connect and give each other feedback when they knew they weren't the only one who had to be the feedback person or something for another student. And with Slack, we're able to put them in these pods in the software interface where they can chat and connect in their pod, and it's kind of their little space to be and be their own different unique selves and connect online and form this basis of a connection, of a mentorship connection that's guided as well. And then when we meet in person for our field experiences, they already have that groundwork laid. So they still have the, hi, it's really nice to see your face in real life, but it's already there. They've already made those connections, and they can just kind of get over that awkward part and move through it in about 10 minutes and then just go full bore into their outdoor learning experiences together. And with our outdoor virtual classroom, they're able to say, like, did you click that thing, or did you find that rock that takes you to that other place? And kind of be in that space too, and kind of bring it all together in their pods, which has been a huge, huge, huge resource for us. Yeah.
And keeping it unique like that, it gives them purpose. I know a lot of my kids were on a hybrid schedule, so when they're online all day long. And so just making it different from everything else that they're exposed to with all of their other classes has been really beneficial.
Yeah. And when they go into the learning space, it just looks different, and they can kind of think with a different part of their brain when they're in this space and know that it's as outside as we can get when we're looking at the computer. And then we're going to go outside together and really experience the good, the better stuff, maybe we would say. Does anyone have, I would love to know this too, does anyone have a Bitmoji they'd like to share? If you have your own Bitmoji you'd like to share, we love seeing our own versions of ourselves. I'm not sure, I don't think we can share screens, but I think you can maybe chat your picture if you have it on your, like a picture of yourself.
So I'm gonna take it a little philosophical. This is Jeff Letterman. I'm actually in the Northeast Metro, and I am in my screen porch. So you can probably hear the red-winged blackbirds have arrived in Northeast St. Paul in the last couple of days. So that's exciting. All these resources are really wonderful ways to extend the outdoors inside. And I'm going to ask if what your experiences are, maybe they're anecdotal or research that people have, because maybe I'm an old fuddy-duddy now, but I'm always concerned about technology, so much technology time, and maybe even taking away from being outside. And I know you're using this to enhance, but I'm just wondering, curious if there's some research that documents that these type of activities do increase kids' interest or learners' interest and makes them more motivated to go outside. And I'm guessing anecdotal evidence of that, but if there's any other theoretical research or whatever, that would be great to share too.
I guess it's not research based, but just feedback from my students. Kids are busy and they can spend all day doing schoolwork. And so some of the feedback that I got was they loved these assignments because a lot of our assignments had them go outside. It forced them to go outside. And without that, they wouldn't go on their own. And then these assignments sparked an interest. So then they were able to go out more on their own.
There is research though in education. So maybe not just environmentally driven, but engaged experiential learning is really impactful with students. And this is what this whole course is about, whether it be through technology, but then we blend it with the outdoor experience. And all our feedback has been extremely positive. The students are so relieved and happy that they get to do all these really cool things outside that they never knew before. It's different. And even they said it helped their mental health. It's a big stress release for them. But we do have some research that shows that this type of approach, whether it be environments or other things, is very a positive way for Jessie, what's it called? Lasting, remember that lasting
Oh.
memory?
Yes, durable memories. Yeah, durable memories.
So that's a term we use when we create curriculum where it sticks with the student forever. And so that's sometimes our underlying force, and it creates durable memories for us as well.
I also, I know in certain areas of higher ed, I'm only speaking from my experience with our students who are in health science, but we have found that for a lot of our students, there are so many barriers to going outside. One of which is many of our students come from large urban areas and don't have experience spending time outside for like as a personal experience. It's not a thing. It's uncomfortable at first. The purpose is hard to understand, and it's just a different part of life. And our second thing we encounter a lot is the stigma or perceived stigma against taking time to go outside. Our students will say things like, well, if I'm going outside, I'm not studying, or I'm in a competitive environment in higher ed. I don't know if people would feel like I'm working hard if I take time to go outside for myself. So we've found that we've been able to not combat those, but kind of give students an excuse where they're like, well, I have to go outside because it's for a class, but I'm working hard. And it's a way to kind of give students an excuse to work through that barrier of stigma of not working hard enough and not always being on the computer and always being in a book, and say, well, my instructors said I have to, and make it a part of a habit that they can kind of say, it's not me, it's them, but they can really engage in the positives of doing that.
I also had my students take like selfies of themselves outside on different days. Like we had migratory bird day, and they had to go out and find like as many birds as they could find, and they got points for as many birds as they could find throughout the day. And then they had, I can't remember what day it was, but some day in the fall where I was like, okay, I want everybody to spend time outside. And so they had to take pictures with a timestamp on it, and then they could upload it. Oh, it was the not buy nothing. Well, I call it buy nothing day because that's what it used to be called, but it's the day after Thanksgiving. Opt outside, and so they could either send me a photo with a timestamp of them doing something outside, or they could send me a screenshot of them. Like them posting on social media about Opt Outside Day and what they did for that day. And just as a way to kind of keep them engaged. And they did comment in the class, like, I got points for just like going outside. And it's true. Like, this is an important part of this work, is getting out there.
I do that for my biology students too. I'll assign green hours where over the weekend they have to go outside for 1 or 2 hours and send me a reflection on what they did.
I just want to clarify, I'm not questioning the value of going outside for education, but I just wanted to have a conversation about the technology piece. And I think some of you answered how it can enhance it, or it can prepare kids for that when they actually do end up going outside. So thank you.
Yeah, that was a great question. Great question.
I have one quick story to add there for Jeff as well, and for all of us actually. Angus Mossman, that's a heck of a name, right? Angus Mossman. He was a naturalist here just last year, and he was the most skeptical of using iNaturalist of any naturalist I've ever had here. He was the most skeptical. And then when he got chased away from here because of the pandemic, he went to southern Wisconsin. I think he uses iNaturalist more than anybody else on the planet now. And he doesn't use it for identifying things. He uses it as a database for his space, and he uses it to connect to other naturalists all over the world. I don't think that guy ever is on anything except for iNaturalist now, but he's always in touch with people. So I see it as the Facebook for nerdy naturalists, and I love it.
I've spoken on this many times, but my two kids actually went to conserve school. It's a juniors in high school. It's a semester in literally engaged right in nature, learning traditional coursework, but all outside or mostly outside. It's in northeastern Wisconsin. Unfortunately, with COVID, they did close, and now they're reassessing kind of their future as a school and how they're going to operate. But it is the most phenomenal example of outdoor environmental education with real experiential learning, that and not just for science, but for art and literature and social studies. And so if you teach high school, they still do have most of their lessons and classes and outlines on their website. So it's conserveschool.org. So if you have a chance, check that out. But it to me just demonstrated how you can do this. It's a completely different context for people, but in almost all coursework, we can do so much more with kids outside and still be, you were referring to standards and expectations, and still teach advanced placement and other types of high level coursework that is achieving high expectations. So check it out.
I think that's a really great point. And one thing we do in our curriculum is give time for artistic expression in a lot of different ways. And even in our virtual experience, as a last minute, we put squash in their field kits, and it was like the highlight of their day that they've never cooked squash before, and they had to take it
A lot of them
out.
have never had squash before.
And it's such simple things that we can expose students to about, so their creativity, they really appreciate that along with the science. And so we try to put those engaged options as well, and they really appreciate it.
We also, one of the things we were reflecting on this year is we asked students, we did an assignment called podcast visualizations, where we would find environmentally focused podcasts. And instead of students taking notes on them, they would draw out the podcast as they were listening to it. And we had so many students say things like, I used to draw and I just don't do it anymore. And I feel like I'm reconnecting with parts of me that I had lost because now I'm so technologically stuck. Like I do everything online. I draw only with my little tools that I use for anatomy. They're all on the computer. And I think having students reconnect with things that are those skills and those things they used to love that are not technologically based is really important. And I think we could definitely do more of that as we keep evolving our course and our spaces.
One other thing we've been successful with is individual field kits. So we send stuff to students so they all have all the same things and all different cool stuff, and they love it. It's like Christmas to them, almost like they get this really cool package and it's full of all these really neat things that they get to work on. And we've had the best luck during the pandemic and everything, how do we reach them? And that's one way that we've been able to really connect. And it's actually fun for us to put these together too. It's like, how can you do things on a dime and get them all in the box? And, they grew things and they were excited about it. And they, what else was in the field kits, Jessie?
So in the video that we showed where our student was looking at buckthorn, they just got a chunk of wood. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know what it was from. They didn't know how to use it. And we got some emails like, hey, I just got my kit in the mail and it has a big hunk of wood in it. Is that supposed to be there? And so doing things that they would work with later, but they didn't know why or what at the time, was very fun for everyone. And they had to figure out what it was and like peel it and use their hands and work with it in real life.
Yeah, they also had the little microscope adapters for their phones. Those were in all of the kits.
Yeah.
The text that we use, we include those.
Yeah, so they have their online hub or their online home, and then they have all the things that they get to do and kind of do on their own, and then connect in the gallery and bring it all together by the end. Okay, well, do we have any more questions or any other resources we would like to share? This has been so fun connecting with everyone and learning more about all these ideas.
Yeah. And remember, Jessie's invitation there is for all of us. If you have any kind of resources that you would like to share, put those links, put those resources in the chat here at the end, especially. And remember that we'll make this available for everybody. So if you fail to get that copy, it'll be available for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We really, really are feel grateful to be able to share some of the fun things we've been up to and hear your thoughts, comments, and suggestions and your new ideas too.
It's
Yes,
so
thank
nice.
you all.
It's so nice to have you all be sharing. And what I want to do is just bring attention to the fact that I love these conversations at the end where we get to share these ideas and get to hear from new voices that maybe haven't presented, but definitely have things to share. And what I want to do is I want to bring back one of the old guys. Oh my gosh, Larry from a few weeks ago has something else that he wanted to share. And against my better judgment, I'm going to give him some space to share with everybody. Larry, are you in there? I'm sharing this, the identifying trees. I think you might be on mute. I'm not seeing you actually either.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I just posted this on my website at www.oldnaturalist.com, and I have a winter nature school, and then this is one of my lessons. And basically, this is for elementary level. The question is, what do you do during this transitional time? I think this is really cool because I started looking at once I started looking at this, I'm becoming more aware that that there's a lot of red oaks in my neighborhood where I live. And so here's what I have on this for this nature school. I've got 2 pages. I got the 12 most common trees. That's just one of the pages. And then I have a video that where the kids have to figure out what it is. I don't tell them what it is. They use the pages, and then they make guesses and stuff. And then my follow-up is they have to take a hike and make a bar graph of the common trees in their neighborhood. And also there's a thing on bark rubbings too. So anyway, thanks for the opportunity to share that, Joe. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Larry. Yeah. And so you said you put that in the chat. I'm so focused, I didn't even notice what went in the chat. I want to make sure everybody has resources.
Okay, yeah, I did not put that in there.
At least put your website in there for people who might not remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Excellent.
All right.
And to Jessie and Kristin and Megan, thank you so much for presenting. This has been great. I've been inspired to think slightly different about some of the things, and that's the whole purpose of this, right? And to open up that we can share with each other and challenge each other in different ways that we think about this. So thank you very much. Sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thanks, Joe.